My mom told everyone I was just the tech guy. Then she gave my company, my life's work, to my sister, and fired me like I was never there. No warning, no thank you, just silence. But what she didn't know was that I'd already written a line of code, one she'd never see coming. And when it triggered, everything started to fall. Want to know what happened next? I got there early. I always did. It was the relaunch event, one we'd been planning for 6 months. Well, one I had been planning. The company was buzzing with flowers, big banners, a stage, camera crews, and sponsors. Charleston was humid, as usual. I was sweating, but not from nerves. I knew every piece of that system inside out. Every integration, every automation, every platform stack. What I didn't know was that I'd spent all those nights building something they were about to take from me. I picked up a program from the table by the door, skimmed it once, then again. My name wasn't on it. I flipped it over, scanned the list of speakers, acknowledgements, even the founders section. No mention, not even a typo. It was like the paper didn't know me. Nora's name, though, was printed in gold foil. Co-founder and strategic visionary. Darlene, my mother, stood on the stage in her signature blazer. She looked proud, smiling wide in front of the cameras. She called Nora the heart and soul of this brand, said her leadership and brilliance had taken us further than anyone imagined. People clapped, some even stood up. I sat in the back row, alone. My seat didn't have a nameplate. It was like I had never existed. After the applause faded and people started moving toward cocktails and small talk, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Darlene, short, direct. Come to my office. 5 minutes. I made my way up the stairs to the executive floor. Security nodded, too quickly. They knew something I didn't, yet she didn't look up when I walked in. We've decided to streamline leadership, she said, flipping through a stack of papers. Streamline? I repeated, not really asking. It's time, she said. You've been helpful, but the company needs one voice now, a clear direction. This isn't personal. Right, I said. Just business. You'll hand over your access credentials today. It is standing by. You can take your personal effects. HR will handle paperwork next week. No, thank you. No, sorry. No, this must be hard. Just exit. Security was waiting outside the elevator, hands folded, eyes trained on the far wall. Like I was already invisible. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't even ask why. I nodded. I walked down to my office and picked up the plain cardboard box they had already placed on the desk. They knew I'd be packing. Inside it, I placed one thing, my framed certificate from year 1, the day we hit our first $10,000 in sales. I remembered sleeping on the floor of the warehouse that night, half eating a sandwich, fixing back-end code. I remembered Nora calling in sick that week. I stepped into the elevator. No one joined me. The ride down felt like falling. People in the lobby glanced up. Some looked away. One coworker, Steve from logistics, whispered, "I'm sorry," like he was ashamed to be near me. Outside, it had started raining. Not a storm, just enough for the air to stick to your skin. I held the box tight and walked past the valet. I didn't need help. I didn't want a witness. My car was still where I left it, under the live oak. I slid into the driver's seat, shut the door, and sat there in silence. I didn't cry. I just reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and unlocked the private command app. A screen lit up. Confirm system trigger, yes, no. My hand hovered, trembling. Not from fear, but restraint. I pressed yes. The screen blinked once, then displayed, countdown, 72 hours. They thought they erased me. I was just getting started. I didn't realize it then, but those quiet backups would later become my greatest weapon. But before I go there, I need to tell you about the years that came before, the years I spent building something they'd never give me credit for. It started in the garage behind my apartment, no AC, just an old folding table, a secondhand monitor, and too many energy drinks. I spent most nights there, hunched over code, trying to build a logistics system from scratch. No investor money, no salary, just belief. I was up at 3 a.m. More nights than I can count, writing lines of back-end functions to connect payment processing to an inventory system that didn't even exist yet. It was messy, but it worked. Slowly, then it worked faster. Back then, Darlene used to call me her quiet soldier, said I was the reason things moved behind the scenes, but she never invited me to investor dinners, never once introduced me as co-founder. Nora, meanwhile, was still at that marketing firm downtown. She'd show up on weekends, help rewrite some taglines, pose for a few brand shots. She was always polished, always ready with a quote. Arliss is the engine, Darlene told someone once. But Nora, she's the face. And it stuck. One Mother's Day, I spent the better part of 2 nights designing a scarf. It was simple. A raw sketch of our prototype logo, printed onto silk. It wasn't perfect, but it meant something. I boxed it with a handwritten note. Thanks for believing in what we're building. 2 months later, I saw it again. This time in a photo shoot for one of our early promos. Nora held the scarf up, smiling. The photographer asked where it came from. Darlene beamed. Nora had it made for me, she said. Isn't she thoughtful? And that was it. I stood maybe 20 feet away, heard every word, didn't say a damn thing. Just watched the lie settle into place like a stone in wet cement. There was a pattern I would later understand, but back then, I still hoped it was a one-off mistake. Working with family was like breathing through a straw. Sunday dinners turned into performance reviews. Conversations blurred between business goals and holiday to-do lists. There wasn't much space to be just a son. Nora owned every room she walked into. She knew when to laugh, when to let silence stretch. Darlene never interrupted her. She let her run the table. At one conference, I was introduced as our ET support. I'd written the entire presentation, built the platform that hosted it, but Nora was the one on stage. My name wasn't on the brochure. I kept telling myself the same lie. If the work is good, that's all that matters. But the ache stayed. Didn't matter how many product launches we had, how many late nights I put in. The more I did, the easier it was for them to take. Then came the fade out. Darlene stopped CCing me on major client chains. My dashboard access shrank. Suddenly, Nora was the point of contact for everything. Testimonials started coming in with quotes like, "Nora's strategic insight has changed our business." I was on every call. She joined 1, maybe 2. At an all-hands meeting, Darlene rolled out a new roadmap. "This is Nora's vision," she said. The room clapped. I clapped too. I smiled, pretended. That night, I opened my notebook, wrote 1 sentence at the top of the page. I don't think I'm supposed to be here anymore. I didn't mean the meeting, I meant the whole damn thing. Later that week, I found a box of old sketches, design iterations, branding notes, old mock-ups of the website from when we had less than 200 customers. One of the pages had a hand-drawn logo. Next to it, scribbled in pencil, were 3 words. For Mom. I stared at it longer than I'd like to admit, folded it, slid it into the drawer. Then whispered to myself, with no one around to hear it, they don't know what they're losing, but they will. And that was the first night I backed up everything. Twice. I didn't plan on opening that email. It showed up in my inbox at 2:14 a.m. Subject line, "You should see this." No name, no signature, just a file attached. I almost deleted it. But something in me hesitated. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was that lingering itch I couldn't scratch since the day they pushed me out. Either way, I opened it. PDF. Title, Legal Transfer of IP Assets, Southern Bloom Organics. I clicked. The date was circled, 9 months before the event. And the signatures, right there in blue. Darlene, Nora. They'd legally moved every system I built, every protocol, every tool tied to that company under Nora's name. 9 months before they told me to get out. They signed me out of my own legacy before they even looked me in the eye. I sat back in my chair, opened the file again and again, scanned every line like maybe there was some mistake. But no, it was real. And worse, it was clean. I opened my archive folders. Started tracing back everything, invoices, time-stamped builds, file revisions, old backup logs. I knew how to find what most people overlook, and I was looking now. What I found hit me harder than the document. Right after we hit that $5 million valuation, suddenly Nora's name was showing up everywhere. Internal newsletters, client proposals, media kits, all of it. I pulled up emails from that same quarter. Clients who had always spoken to me were now addressing Nora directly, not because she earned their trust, but because she was being positioned as the new authority. This wasn't reactive. This was staged. While I was still showing up to every meeting, every client call, every late-night emergency fix, Darlene and Nora were already preparing the stage, and I wasn't written into the next act. This wasn't an accident. I was edited out. I moved to my design folder. Looked at the branding file we'd launched with back when we were nothing but wishful thinking and duct tape. It was called Southern Bloom Original.ai. Clara, the PR lead, had renamed the latest version N-Brand Revised AI. Cute, but when I opened it, same backbone, same design grid, my original structure, my shape work, my layer codes, still embedded with my initials in the metadata. They kept the house, changed the paint. They can repaint it all they want, I muttered. The foundation is still mine. I took a screenshot, saved it, then kept digging. That night, I started something I hadn't done in a while. I built a new folder, encrypted, hidden under 4 layers of nonsense, labeled it, If They Try Me, Zip. Then I went to work, exported backup logs, preserved system files, compiled a timeline called What They Took and When, not out of rage, not even out of grief, just memory. I didn't want revenge. I wanted them to remember who built the ground they're standing on. I was about to close my laptop when another email came in, different this time. Subject: You don't know me, but I know what they did. I opened it. Jolene, she used to work in fulfillment, quiet woman, sharp, kind eyes. She'd attached an internal memo, a scanned copy from 6 months ago, dated, signed, and buried under a mountain of digital noise. It was the directive to remove my name from the founder registry. Her message was short. I kept this. Figured you might need it someday. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen. If they erased me, I whispered, they could erase anyone. Not this time. I didn't go to that quarterly meeting because I was expected. I went because habit dies hard. Even after the way they stripped my name from everything, some part of me still clung to the routine. So I showed up, sat in the corner of the conference room, and watched them carry on like I'd never been there to begin with. There it was, on the projector screen, Nora's 2025 roadmap. Full of buzzwords, full of fluff, no mention of the real framework we built, the back-end systems I used to monitor daily. My dashboard, gone, my role, rewritten. Darlene stood up front, arms folded like a proud general. Nora ran through the slides like she'd been doing it her whole life. The clients nodded, a few investors smiled. Someone clapped before she even finished the sentence. And then the kicker, a slide that read, clear as daylight, founded and elevated by Darlene Nora. I didn't say a word, didn't even blink. Later, I caught Darlene as she stepped out for coffee. Told her I needed a minute, just one. She gave me that smile, the one that's mostly teeth, not much soul. Make it quick, she said, like I was wasting her time, like I wasn't the reason she had that time to begin with. You really left me off everything? I asked, voice level. I gave you a roof, food, and a chance, she said, calm as could be. Don't confuse that with ownership. It landed sharp, but the way she said it, not angry, not ashamed, like she was teaching me a lesson, like I had overstepped some boundary I should have known existed. You don't own this brand, she added, and frankly, neither did Nora at first, but she earned her space. I should have said something right then, called out the hypocrisy, the gaslighting, but instead, I nodded, because after all these years, I'd been trained to let her have the last word, but something shifted in me. I remembered another moment, one I hadn't thought about in years. Thanksgiving. Family still pretended to be close back then. We were at the dinner table when I brought up a new packaging concept I'd designed. Cost-effective, sustainable, on brand. Nora barely looked up from her wine. "Leave the branding to me, spreadsheet boy." Darlene laughed, not just a chuckle, a full, warm, delighted laugh. I let it slide. That night, I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. We were family. They didn't mean it. I'd show them with the work. But now, it hit me differently. I hadn't stayed silent because I was weak. I stayed silent because I was hoping like a fool that they'd come around. That if I gave them enough space, enough wins, they'd eventually look back and say, "He made this possible." But they didn't. And they wouldn't. I went home that evening and pulled up the company's new website. Took maybe 2 minutes to find what I was looking for. Every photo with me? Scrubbed clean, cropped, replaced, deleted. The founder's history page. Revised. Nora was now the visionary behind the launch, and Darlene, the driving force of execution. Me? I didn't exist. Not even in the original blog post I wrote. Still on the server, but now with Nora's name on the byline. I sat there, staring at the screen, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge in my apartment. Then I started downloading everything: screenshots, source files, media backups. I renamed the folder, replaced history, zip. I didn't cry, didn't shake, I just moved. A different kind of movement, not reaction, response. Later that night, I found the notebook I'd kept in the garage all those years ago, flipped to the very first page. Day 1. Build something real. Underneath, in fresh ink, I wrote, "Day 1 again, take it back." I closed the cover, opened my encrypted drive, typed one line, "Initiate phase 1, exposure." Let's see how they spin this when the truth starts leaking. I wasn't planning on buying anything that day, just browsing, killing time before heading to a client call that didn't matter anymore. But there it was, buried 3 rows down on a consignment site. A silver chain with a hand-carved leaf. The caption said, "No known origin, gently used." It stopped me cold. 5 years ago, I'd spent weeks looking for that exact piece. Commissioned by a disabled artist I'd met at a local fair. He carved leaves from scraps of sterling silver. No two were the same. I had it custom wrapped, wrote a note on heavy cream stationery, signed it, "Thanks for never giving up on me." I bought it anonymously. When it arrived, the box was different. The chain was still perfect. The note? Gone. I sat on the couch holding it in my palm like it was something sacred, like it still carried the weight I gave it the first time. But the truth was louder than nostalgia. She never remembered where it came from. Maybe never cared. Maybe never even opened the envelope. Even when I gave her something personal, I was still invisible. Later that night, I drove by the old HQ. Didn't know why at first. Just wanted to see it lit up again. But I still had the backup badge clipped in my glove box, and the doors hadn't changed since I left. I let myself in. The lobby was unrecognizable. New colors, new banners, screens looping a polished reel of Nora and Darlene in boardrooms, test kitchens, factory floors, faux candid shots, all smiles and posturing. The main hallway, the one with the framed plaques of our first investors, our launch team, the awards we actually earned, gone. Replaced with certificates from business networks I'd never heard of. Some sponsored, some meaningless. And the founder's wall used to be side-by-side photos of Nora and me. Now, just Nora. Mine had been replaced with a framed quote, "Dreams are for the bold." Nora. Even the wall we signed on opening week, Sharpie signatures across bare drywall. Painted over. I wasn't erased by mistake. I was erased by design. Next morning, I stopped by the old employee fridge. Still knew the code. Jolene had said she'd leave something for me. Inside a plain manila folder were Polaroids. Me, hunched over a server, holding a power drill, grinning with greasy hands. Printouts of architecture diagrams with my name, date stamps, version history. No message, just truth. She didn't steal this alone. They let her. Back home, I sat with that thought longer than I'd like to admit. Maybe I helped them do it. Maybe I was part of the machine that pushed me out. I thought about all the meetings where I nodded instead of questioning. All the times I stayed late, cleaned up messes, fixed what others broke, and never asked for credit, never demanded fairness. They didn't just take advantage of my silence, I said out loud. I offered it, because I thought that's what family did. Thought staying quiet was how I protected something bigger than me. Turns out, silence isn't neutral. It's permission. For the first time, I stopped blaming them entirely. Not because they didn't deserve it, but because I needed to own the part of me that stayed in the corner too long. I let too much slide in the name of family. Never again. That evening, I opened the folder Jolene gave me, picked one photo. Me at the whiteboard, explaining our first API flow to a room of tired, hopeful faces, uploaded it to Reddit, captioned it, "Ever been cut from a company you helped build?" Didn't tag anyone, didn't attach names, just dropped it. Within 3 hours, the thread exploded. People commented, shared, speculated. Then someone tagged the company's official handle and wrote, "Why was this guy never credited?" I didn't reply. That was just one photo. Imagine what the rest could do. The message came late, an intern I barely remembered. Check the company page. Anniversary videos live. I was sitting at the counter, half-done sandwich on the plate, coffee long cold. I clicked the link. Bright music, B-roll of the factory. Laughing interns. Darlene walking through a warehouse with a clipboard she never used. Nora posing like she just invented the wheel. And then her voice. Those early nights, there were moments I thought, what if we fail? But I stayed. I built the structure. I knew it had to be me. The words hit me like a gut punch. That was my line. That was my story. That was my work. And the photo? The one from our first pitch, the investors' table, all of us huddled over prototypes and numbers? Cropped. I was gone. Completely. They weren't just rewriting history, they were replacing me with fiction. Next morning, I met Jolene at a quiet cafe off Spring Street. No names, no small talk. Just her, sliding a USB across the table, wrapped in a napkin. I kept this because I thought, someday, someone would need to remember, she said. Inside that drive were the raw cuts from our 5th-year celebration, footage no one outside our team had ever seen, unedited interviews, behind-the-scenes setup. Me, breaking down the first warehouse layout, explaining how we scaled onboarding without doubling headcount. I watched myself on screen, sleeves rolled up, talking with tired eyes and greasy hair, but fire in my voice. None of it made the final edit. I wasn't erased by time. I was redacted by decision. That night, I opened Premiere, clipped a 30-second piece. Just me, holding a whiteboard, walking through how the original system sorted regional deliveries. Posted it on a business forum under a throwaway account, captioned it, "When the real builders stay quiet too long." No name, no hashtags, just the clip. By the time I finished brushing my teeth, it had 5,000 views. A few hours later, 12,000. Someone commented, "Wait, isn't this from Southern Bloom?" Another, "Funny, I've seen their video. This guy's not in it." By the next day, someone had tagged the company's LinkedIn account. It was working. I didn't want followers. Didn't need vindication. I was rebalancing the story. Behind the scenes, I started embedding metadata into archived files, tagging them with system aliases I used back in the beginning. My fingerprints were on everything. They'd buried it, but they didn't wipe it clean. A few nights later, I attended a local tech mixer. No press, no branding, just a bunch of folks swapping startup stories over cheap beer and bad sliders. A woman I didn't recognize approached me. "You're Arliss, right?" I nodded, unsure. She smiled. "I was an intern 3 years ago. You helped me fix a prototype that kept overheating." "I would have quit tech if you hadn't stayed late that day." She hugged me. Just like that. No cameras, no agenda, just someone remembering something I didn't. That hug did more than any award or write-up ever could. It reminded me why I started in the first place. That night, I pulled out a box of old employee testimonials I'd kept for no real reason. Notes scribbled on index cards. Thank you emails. A sticky note from the warehouse staff that said, "We'd follow you anywhere." I'd thought of them as sentimental junk. Now, they were evidence. Back home, I sat at my desk, dim light pooling around the keyboard, opened my system admin portal, typed in the final line of code for the last layer of a contingency protocol, one I'd built months ago when I still believed they might go too far. A prompt blinked. If erased from system admin, execute public dump alpha. I saved it. Closed the screen. They built their empire on silence. Mine will start with one undeniable truth. The more I remembered what they took, the less afraid I was of making noise. 2 days before the networking event, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't saved. I almost ignored it, thought it was spam. Then I saw the name. Walter. My father. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade. No falling out. Just the kind of silence that grows when someone walks out and never looks back. His message was short. I've seen what they did. I'm sorry. You were always the better builder. No hello, no explanation, no request to reconnect. Just a sentence. The kind that hits deeper because it's so late and so simple. I didn't reply, but I screenshotted it, not to share, not for proof, just to remember that even ghosts sometimes speak truth. The night before the event, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my jacket collar like I used to before pitch meetings, not to impress, just to feel like I belonged in my own story. The networking event was hosted by one of our old suppliers, a mid-sized logistics partner who had no clue they were giving me a front-row seat to the people who ghosted me out of my own company. Nora was there. Of course, she had that glow, the one polished by media training and curated Instagram reels. Clara flanked her, phone always in hand, snapping candids that didn't look candid at all. Darlene spotted me before I reached the bar. Her smile didn't flinch. She walked right up, arms open like we were family that actually acted like it. There you are, she said. It's been too long. Has it? I replied. She didn't blink, just kept smiling, said something about how good I looked, how glad she was I came. I played along, nodded, smiled, kept my drink half full and my mouth mostly shut. But I watched how they moved in the room, who greeted who turned away, who didn't even know I'd ever existed. Near the end of the night, Nora and I ended up in the same intro circle. The host started to reintroduce us, clearly unaware of our last name connection, when Nora reached out her hand. Good to see you again, she said, all polished surface. I paused for just a second. Then I took her hand. Firm grip, eye contact, and just like that, the cameras flashed. People clapped, laughed, whispered. Oh, wow, they're back on good terms. This is big. They thought it was a reunion. What they didn't know, tucked into my watch band, was a tiny USB stick, pressure activated. The handshake had triggered a live transfer. All the data I had spent months compiling, emails, raw footage, documents with altered metadata, was now uploading into a secure cloud. You wanted a photo op? I thought. Here's your headline. I smiled. Behind my teeth, the download bar ticked upward. While Nora gave her Women in Leadership talk on stage, I stepped out. No fuss. Just walked into the hallway, sat on a bench, opened my phone. 10 gigs uploaded. Everything synced. I opened the first file, a note I had written myself, tucked in as a reminder. This is the truth. Keep it safe. I stared at it for a moment, then I scheduled 3 emails, each one loaded with different batches of evidence. Recipients, 3 independent journalists who'd never once accepted company ads. One had covered whistleblowers in healthcare. Another broke stories in tech monopolies. The third was known for exposing corporate fraud. Delivery set for 24 hours after the event. They gave me a mic. I just chose a different stage. On my way out, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. A former contractor. I remembered his face, but not his name. He looked nervous, like even talking to me might be risky. I remember you, he said. I still have the invoices you signed when no one else would pay us on time. I nodded once. Said nothing. Because he wasn't just talking about money, he was saying, you mattered. And if one truth can survive this long, imagine what happens when it spreads. The system was mine again, but power isn't the same as peace. I woke up that morning with no appetite, didn't even bother making coffee. My hands moved through the motions like they belonged to someone else. Open the laptop, log in, check the clock. 7:59 a.m. The cloud trigger was set. Every file I had backed up for the past 6 months, contracts, code bases, time-stamped edits, raw video, all of it queued for replication to 3 external servers. 8:00 a.m. The system blinked. Then it started. Backups launched. Source files replicated. Hidden data buried in folders started moving. The internal platform began glitching. Order processing hung. Product page updates failed. Then came the message. Plain. Centered on the homepage. System maintenance initiated by founding engineer ID number X020. Inside the office, I imagined the panic. Nora checking her phone. Clara calling it. Darlene demanding a quick fix. Phones went to voicemail. Email servers timed out. Customer support queues overloaded. I didn't need to yell. I just needed them to watch their castle sink. By 9:15, the first article dropped. An independent tech site posted screenshots, metadata, early architecture, founder lists from year 1. The headline read, "The Forgotten Founder of Southern Bloom, What Really Happened." 10 minutes later, another outlet published, then a third. Journalists I'd quietly fed began connecting the dots, dates, signatures, press releases that contradicted internal emails, photos that were cropped, credit removed, roles reassigned, comment sections lit up. Some users posted anonymized versions of old employee rosters. Others uploaded screenshots of conversations with Nora where she claimed she'd led development from day 1. Clients began tweeting, "If Nora didn't build the tech, who did? This isn't the story they sold us." Then someone posted, "Not all tech thefts happen in garages. Sometimes it's inside your own kitchen." That one went viral. I didn't join the noise. I just watched. At 10:37 a.m., Jolene sent me a batch of inbox captures, dozens of old emails, not from Darlene, but from staff. One said, "We always knew, but we didn't know what to say. I'm sorry." Another, "You were the reason I didn't quit during Q2. I never said thanks." I sat at the kitchen table reading them, the morning light slipping across the floor. I didn't feel proud, didn't feel vengeful, just quiet, because for years I thought my silence made me small. But maybe it just made them bolder. They didn't just erase me, they erased their own conscience. By noon, investor calls began flooding the switchboard. Emergency meetings were scheduled. People wanted answers. Clara resigned via LinkedIn. The post read, "Creative differences." But people knew. Nora tried going live. Sat in her office, fake tears, soft lighting. We've always been transparent. She tried discrediting the leaks, calling them misinformation. But people were already fact-checking in real time. Then came the clip. Darlene, at a gala 6 months ago. Someone had recorded her laughing into a microphone, drink in hand. "Some people are better off staying behind the curtain." That sentence became a meme in less than an hour. Someone posted it under the hashtag #ErasedByMom. The empire didn't burn. It rotted from within. That evening, I logged into the system one last time. The admin panel loaded slowly. Too much traffic on the back end. But it opened. A single prompt waited for me. "Delete access for admin Darlene and admin Nora?" I didn't hesitate. Clicked yes. Confirmation flashed. All keys revoked. New root admin established. This time, I won't be the one behind the curtain. I built this. And they'll remember who did. Some people build empires. I just needed to build my peace. I sat in the new office, if you could call it that, a converted sunroom with too much light in the morning and too little in the afternoon. No whiteboards, no sliding doors. Just a desk I picked up secondhand, a creaky chair, and my old laptop. The admin system was still mine. I could see the back-end dashboards, the server logs, the entire architecture humming like it used to under my hands. I could have kept digging, kept pressing, but I didn't. I had the power. I just didn't need it anymore. Emails still came in. Ex-employees, a few investors, even some clients. Some were supportive. Some were clearly covering their own bases. I read most of them, ignored them all. Not out of pride, out of peace. I didn't want back in. I just wanted out. On my terms. That afternoon, I printed a letter. 1 page. You said I wasn't a leader, but you still use the email system I built. No bitterness, no threats. Just that line, clean, true. I folded it carefully, slid it into an envelope. I tucked in the napkin sketch, the one I'd drawn years ago. The original logo, hand-drawn with notes in the margins. Then I drove to the old building. The place was under renovation. I walked past contractors laying tiles, rebranding signs being carted in. No one recognized me. Good. At the front desk, I handed the envelope to the woman checking IDs. Please make sure this gets to Darlene. She nodded. I turned and walked out without waiting for a reply. They rewrote my name. I rewrote my silence. I heard about Nora's apology through a text from a former coworker. She posted a video, crying, said she didn't know. People aren't buying it. I didn't watch it, didn't need to. I'd lived the fall. I didn't need to see it dramatized. Darlene never said a word. No statement, no interview, no surprise. She always did her best work in silence, the kind that makes others doubt their own memory. I didn't need that silence anymore. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the absence of denial. A few days later, a letter arrived in the mail. Real ink, real envelope. It was from a young founder, someone I'd never met. Your story reminded me not to let myself become invisible in my own company. I read it twice, then placed it next to the framed napkin sketch, now hanging on the wall across from my desk. Not for vanity. To remember the cost. I stopped by Jolene's house on a quiet Sunday afternoon. She answered the door like she expected me. I handed her a small potted plant. For your porch, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You didn't have to. I know. She smiled. About time someone said something, she added, before waving me inside. Later that week, I found myself walking past the old coffee shop, the one where the first idea was scribbled on a receipt. I stepped inside. Same smell, same barista. I took a seat in the corner booth. No laptop, no plans, just stillness. They took my name off the walls, but I never needed a wall to prove I was here.